The claim has been made that the accounts of Jesus Christ of Christianity and Baldr of Norse paganism are essentially the same thing. While anyone can make that claim, only those who take their beliefs seriously enough to examine them at the source can say for certain whether this claim is accurate or not. And in order to affirm or dismiss this claim properly, we need to ask two simple questions. What are the earliest sources on the lives of Jesus and Baldr? And is the comparison, after having read both, reasonable? Well, according to the accounts that we know of Baldr, the earliest possible mention of Baldr, especially in the context of a dead and rising god, goes back to the earliest written source Odinism has, which is the Eddas. You can look to later Saxon writings about Baldr, but they changed the story dramatically, so we're not going to represent any certain corruptions on Baldr. Now, this collection of poems, known as the Eddas, were based on oral tradition passed throughout Norse culture for centuries. The three main poems that form our understanding of Baldr's story are Voluspo, Lokasenna, and Baldr's Drummer. These primary sources tell us mainly about his death, which took place as follows. First, Baldr began having nightmares, which Odin didn't know the cause of. He travels to Niflhel to ask a dead woman their meaning. In Baldr's Drummer, verses 1 through 4, we read, Once were the gods together met, and the goddesses came and council held. The far-famed ones the truth would find, why baleful dreams to Baldr had come. Then Odin rose, the enchanter old, the saddle he laid on Sleipnir's back. Thence he rode on to Niflhel deep, and the hound he met that came from hell. Bloody he was on his breast before. At the father of magic he howled from afar. Forward rode Odin, the earth resounded, till the house so high of hell he reached. Then Odin rose to the eastern floor. There he knew well was the wise woman's grave. Magic he spoke, and mighty charms, till spellbound she rose, and in death she spake. Second, after these bad dreams, Baldr allowed Hod to throw various weapons at him, knowing he was immune to harm due to Frigg's enchantments. We read this in the Pros Eddas Gylfaginning 49, which is found on pages 71 and 72. The beginning of the story is this, that Baldr the Good dreamed great and perilous dreams touching his life. When he told these dreams to the Aesir, then they took counsel together, and this was their decision, to ask safety for Baldr from all kinds of dangers. Frigg took oaths to this purport that fire and water should spare Baldr, likewise iron and metal of all kinds, stone, earth, trees, sicknesses, beasts, birds, venom, and serpents. And when that was done and made known, then it was a diversion of Baldr and the Aesir, that he should stand up in the thing, this is generally referred to as Iceland, that all others should come shoot at him, some hew at him, some beat him with stones, but whatsoever was done to him, not what done to hurt him rather, not at all. That seemed to them a very worshipful thing. But when Loki, Lofvir's son, saw this, it pleased him ill that Baldr took no hurt. He went to Fenslar, to Frigg, and made himself into the likeness of a woman. Then Frigg asked if that woman knew what the Aesir did at the thing in Iceland. She said that all were shooting at Baldr, and moreover that he took no hurt. Then said Frigg, Neither weapons nor trees may hurt Baldr. I have taken oaths of them all. Then the woman asked, this is Loki, Have all things taken oaths to spare Baldr? And Frigg answered, There grows a tree sprout alone, westward of Valhall. It is called mistletoe. I thought it too young to ask the oath of. Then straightway the woman turns away, but Loki took mistletoe and pulled it up and went to the thing. Hod stood outside the ring of men, because he was blind. Then spake Loki to him, Why dost thou not shoot at Baldr? He answered, Because I see not where Baldr is, and for this also that I am weaponless. Then he said, Loki, Do thou also after the manner of other men, to show Baldr honor as the other men do. I will direct thee where he stands. Shoot at him with this wand. Hodr took mistletoe and shot at Baldr, being guided by Loki. The shaft flew through Baldr, and he fell dead to the earth. That was the greatest mischance that has ever befallen upon gods and men. Then, when Baldr was fallen, words failed all the Aesir, and their hands likewise to lay hold of him. Each looked at the other, and all were of one mind as to him who had wrought the work, but none might take vengeance. So great a sanctuary was that place. But when the Aesir tried to speak, then it befell first that weeping broke out, so that none may speak to the others with words concerning his grief. But Odin bore the misfortune by so much the worst, as he had most perception of how great harm and loss for the Aesir were in the death of Baldr. So, noting that, Loki in Lokasenna 27 through 28 introduces the mistletoe dart to Hod's arsenal and accidentally kills Baldr. This is what we read. If a son like Baldr were by me now, were here within Aesir's hall, from the sons of the gods thou shouldst go not forth, till thy fierceness in fight were tried. Loki spake, Thou wilt then, Frigg, that further I tell of the ill that I now know. Mine is the blame that Baldr no more thou seest ride home to the hall. So Loki takes credit for Baldr's death. Baldr is then cremated. We read in Baldr's Drama 1:10, Wise woman, Odin speaking, cease not. I seek from thee all to know, that I fain would ask, would shall vengeance win for the evil work, or bring to the flames the slayer of Baldr. Rind bears Vali in Vetstrasdil. And one night old fights Odin's son. His hands shall he wash not, in his hair he shall comb not, till the slayer of Baldr he brings to the flames. Unwilling I spake, now I would be still. Next, Baldr, finally, returns with his unintentional killer, Hod, after Ragnarok. In Voluspo 59 we read, Now do I see the earth anew, rise all green from the waves again. The cataracts fell, the eagle flies, the fish he catches beneath the cliffs. The gods in Itharfol meet together. Of the terrible girdler of earth they talk, and the mighty past they call to mind, and the ancient ruins the ruler of the gods. In wondrous beauty once again shall golden tables stand amidst the grass, which the gods had owned in the days of old. Then fields unsown shall bear ripened fruit, all ills grow better, and Baldr comes back. Baldr and Hoth dwell in Job's battle hall, and the mighty gods would you know yet more. So, in summary, the whole account of Baldr would be understood as follows. The biological offspring of Odin and Frigg is made invincible through his mother's magic when he starts having bad dreams. His one weakness is found out by Loki, who gets the blind Aesir Hod to shoot him and unintentionally kills him. He comes back after Ragnarok with his killer Hod, pretty much for its own sake. Now, with all that clarified, we get to the account of Jesus of Nazareth. The earliest and greatest source on any and all things Christian is the Bible, and the first 4 books of the New Testament are all eyewitness biographies of Jesus' life from their fields and perspectives. While the amount of information we have on Jesus totally eclipses what we know about Baldr, we'll focus only on his death, and for the sake of brevity, we'll only focus on the Gospel of Mark to grasp how his death and resurrection took place. First, Jesus predicts his own death and its purpose. In Mark 10:45 we read, For even the Son of Man, a reference to Daniel, the Messiah, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus then prays, if there is any other way to ransom mankind, to do it instead, but accepts the Father's will above his own. In Mark 14:35 we read, He went a little farther, fell on the ground, and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will. Jesus is then taken prisoner by the Jewish ruling council known as the Sanhedrin and sentenced to death. In Mark 14 and verse 60, And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus, saying, Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you? But Jesus kept silent and answered nothing. Then again the high priest asked him, saying to him, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Again, a reference to Daniel. This was a claim of deity. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "What further need do we have of witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" And they all condemned him to be deserving of death. Then some began to spit on him, to blindfold him, and to beat him, and to say to him, "Prophesy." And the officers struck him with the palms of their hands. And by the way, he was injured by these actions. Fourth, Jesus is crucified over a span of 6 hours, 3 of which he had the wrath of God poured out on him while being mocked. In Mark 15:25 we read, "Now it was the 3rd hour, 9 o'clock in the morning, and they crucified him. And the inscription of his accusation was written above, 'The King of the Jews.' With him they also crucified 2 robbers, one on his right and the other on his left. So the scripture was fulfilled, which says, 'He was numbered with the transgressors.'" This is a reference to the book of Isaiah. "And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, 'Aha, you who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross.' Likewise the chief priests also mocked, and among themselves with the scribes, said, 'He saved others, himself he cannot save. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe.' Even those who were crucified with him reviled him. Now, when the 6th hour had come," so this is noon, "there was darkness over the land until the 9th hour." So 3 full hours, darkness was over the land. This is a reference to Joel chapter 2. "And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, 'Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,' which is translated, 'My God, why have you forsaken me?'" This is a word-for-word quotation from Psalm 22. Some of those who stood by, when they heard that, said, "Look, he is calling for Elijah." Someone ran and filled a sponge full of sour wine, put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink, saying, "Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come and take him down." And Jesus cried with a loud voice and breathed his last. Then finally, Jesus rises from the dead 3 days after his public execution, and his female and male disciples are reminded that this was going to happen. Mark 16, verse 1. "Now when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices that they might come and anoint him. Very early in the morning, on the 1st day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen, and said among themselves, 'Who will roll away the stone of the tomb for us?' Well, when they looked up, they saw the stone had been rolled away, for it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man clothed in a long white robe, sitting on the right side. And they were alarmed. But he said to them, 'Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you into Galilee. There you will see him, as he said to you.'" So in summary, what is the total account of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection as it compares to Baldr? The Son of God incarnates in human form to ransom mankind back to himself. After multiple public trials, he is unjustly sentenced to death. After being scourged, ravaged by the Roman guard, and nailed to a tree to suffocate, Jerusalem went dark, and Jesus experiences hell itself for 3 hours. After dying, he is buried and placed under guard for 3 days, and on the 3rd day, the tomb is found empty. An angel tells the first witnesses of the tomb, women, that he will meet them in Galilee. He then appears to them all individually and in groups for the next 40 days until ascending into heaven, from which he promises to return. Now, is the comparison between Baldr and Jesus reasonable? Well, noting the 5 points that we made in each of the accounts, what did we note? Well, firstly, Jesus predicted his own death and its purpose. Baldr has bad dreams and is unaware of their true meaning. Jesus accepts the purpose he came to this world to accomplish. Frigg attempts to prevent her son's fate by making him invincible, and ultimately sets him up for it through unknowingly telling Loki his secret weakness. Jesus is intentionally executed by the Sanhedrin through Roman crucifixion. Baldr is killed by accident through a mistletoe arrow. Jesus is buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. Baldr is cremated on a magic boat. Jesus will return to judge the world in wrath towards evil, while Baldr will return after Ragnarok to bring peace. To compare the two would be about as reasonable as claiming a car and a building are essentially the same because they both require keys and may have air conditioning. If you're looking for a religion based on history, I can't recommend Odinism. If you're looking for a God who loves and ransomed you in a moment of history, I recommend Jesus Christ.